Hey guys, welcome back. It's Josh with the Financial Advisor Car Guy. This week I wanted to talk to you guys about some alternative types of investing. We have talked at length about how to invest in a vehicle, how to build that vehicle, how to make that vehicle worth more than maybe what you're into it, hopefully so that when you are done with it and you go to sell it, you make some money, okay? The other type of investing is exactly that. When you take your dollars and you put them into something that appreciates over time. So that is my day job. I buy stocks, I buy bonds, I buy mutual funds, I buy CDs, you name it, I can deal with it. And I have made money for clients. We have lost money for clients. The market is a volatile beast. It goes up, it goes down, and all of those things. So a true well-rounded investor does have a diversified portfolio. So I would never encourage any one of my clients to throw every dollar they own into the stock market. That would be irresponsible. That wouldn't be fiduciary of me. It wouldn't be a good thing. Lots of people own homes. You have an asset that is appreciating over time. At the same time, you're making a mortgage payment. So your debt is dwindling while your value is climbing and your equity is climbing. So real estate's another really solid investment, okay? I like cars as my kind of extra bucket. I buy a car, I'll sit on a car, hopefully it goes up in value and I'll sell it, make some money, and then do the process again. I've gotten pretty good at it. I've made money on just about every single car we've ever owned, with the exception of a few daily drivers that maintenance-wise killed us, okay? Outside of maintenance, maybe I bought the car for 15 grand and I sold the car for 15 grand, but maybe I put $5 or $6 or $8 or $10,000 of repairs into it, okay? So those are gonna be the times where I haven't made money. That's not a lot different than if I put 100% of my dollars into the stock market. It might go up, you know, if I put 50,000 bucks in the stock market, shoot, it might get all the way up to 100. Great, now what? It may never get to 100. It might get to 60, 70, and you just say, you know what, that's enough. Enough is enough, and pull my money out. Okay, you just made 20 or 30 grand, great. Okay, now a diversified portfolio is gonna weather the storm. So when the market comes down, okay, some of your holdings should hold value, maintain value, or even climb in value, while some of your stock-based equities are going down in value. So I'm not gonna talk to you about the stock market more than that. That was not the point of this video. The point of this video is to talk about other types of alternatives. What else can people invest in that maybe have a track record of appreciation? One really common one, sports cards. There are all sorts of trading cards out there, not just sports, right? You've got Magic the Gathering cards, you've got Pokemon cards, you've got whatever cards, okay? Then you have your traditional baseball cards, basketball, football, hockey, you name it. And then of course you've got, other types of character cards. I'll call them Marvel cards, right? I know DC Comics had a line back in the 90s. Marvel Comics came out with trading cards. You know, all these different things have become true collectibles today. If you were a kid of the 80s or 90s, you probably remember Saturday morning cartoons, you probably remember all of those things. And with that came a wide variety of trading cards for just about anything. If you remember in the mid-90s, the first Jurassic Park movie came out. Big deal, okay? It was a big deal. Well, I wanna say it was the Topps Corporation, Topps Card Company, came out with trading cards for Jurassic Park. So you could get each dinosaur, you could get each character from the movie, you could get, like a holographic action card where if you turned it a little bit, the picture moved, where it would look like the T-Rex moving or whatever it was, right? So the card trading of the 90s, there was probably nothing better. It was a good time to be alive. It was a fun time to collect those cards. Now fast forward to 2021. What are cards of the 90s worth? Not a lot, not a lot. And the problem is in the 80s and 90s, cards from the 50s and 60s started climbing in value. So anybody, any kid of the 80s or 90s can tell you they probably collected some sort of sports card. And today they're worth nothing because they were such high volumes of production of any brand. You might have a few one-off cards, I think specifically of the 1989 Upper Deck card, Ken Griffey Jr. I think it was card number 1 in the set. It was his rookie card. Well, Ken Griffey Jr., had one heck of a career, later to be inducted to the Hall of Fame. Nike has contracts with Ken Griffey Jr., the whole nine. Ken was the package. And his rookie card's worth some money, okay? That's a pretty rare example. Not many cards in the 80s are worth that much today. So now before you start commenting down below, yelling at me for saying that, there are a few exceptions, again, that being one. But a majority of the cards, generically speaking, of the 80s and totally the 90s, there's very few valuable cards in the 90s worth anything. Most collector cards are going to be from the 50s and 60s. So my personal experience with trading cards is exactly as I just said. I was a kid of the 80s. I collected cards, I traded cards, I stuck cards in my bike spoke tires, and it was life. I had a card shop not too far from my house. I would have lived there if I could, right? If they had a kitchen in the back, I would have asked to move in. That was where I spent all my allowance money. I knew them by name, they knew me by name. It was just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And that's how I loved spending my childhood. I would ride my bike down there, or I'd walk down there. I'd meet friends down there. There was an ice cream parlor a few doors down, so we'd get ice cream and enjoy life. It was good. It was a good time, great time. But most of my personal card collection from when I was a kid isn't worth much today. Now I have a file cabinet full of cards, thousands of cards, and I'll bet you less than 50 of those cards have any sort of value. Most of them are, complete team sets or complete series card sets. Topps would come out with the series 1, 2, and 3, or however they do that now. And there were times when I'd complete the whole series. There might have been 500 cards in that set, and I'd complete it. Well, great. Great, now what? There's 490 players that are garbage and 10 all-stars. And those are the cards everybody wanted. Those are the ones that are worth anything, or at least they were. Now today, you can go buy a complete set of just about any set from the 80s or 90s and pay very little money for it, in contrast. When you go back to the 50s and 60s, you've got cards like Mickey Mantle, right? You've got cards like Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, Jackie Robinson even. Some of these cards are worth top dollars today. If you go back further than that, think back to the holy grail of baseball cards, which isn't so much anymore, right? Early 1900s, the T206 Honus Wagner card. Okay, that card literally has been called the holy grail of baseball cards. There's, I don't know, I'm gonna misquote this, but there's something like 15 left in existence that are known, okay? Now, that card has sold for millions of dollars. There's one that's particularly famous. It was owned by Wayne Gretzky. I don't know what the last time it sold for, but a couple $1 million, okay? Now, fast forward again back to today. You'll see in the news, I wanna say it was a LeBron James card. Rookie card maybe, but some really rare, maybe one of one card. It sold for multi-million dollars, north of $1 million. I don't know what the final sale price was, but more than $1 million for a modern day LeBron James sports card. Crazy, crazy. You're gonna find popularity plays a lot into what the value of a card is, okay? Just because I'm the best player at my sport doesn't mean I have the most valuable card. That's not at all how cards are valued. Cards are valued on rarity and popularity, okay? So think back to the 60s or 50s and 40s and 20s, and let's go to the 20s. Who was the most famous baseball player in the 20s, 100 years ago, okay? Babe Ruth. Now, if you had a Babe Ruth baseball card from the 20s, I would pretty much tell you in any condition, if it was authentic, not a replica, not a reprint, none of those that came out later in time. If you have an original Babe Ruth card from the 20s or 30s, okay, that card is worth tens of thousands of dollars. It doesn't matter the condition. Obviously, the better the condition, the more valuable it is. That is very, very true in today's world. Now, there are a couple of companies. Beckett has one, a company called PSA is another, 2 or 3 others other than those two, but those are the 2 big ones. And those are companies that will grade your card, and they encapsulate it in a hard plastic clamshell type of deal with a little nameplate on there. And they're guaranteeing authenticity, they're giving it a condition grade, giving it a barcode that is unique to that particular card. And you can go to their website and key in or scan that barcode or key in the digits, It will pull up the card. You'll see a scan front and back of the card. It will discuss what the value, not the value, I'm sorry. It'll discuss the grading value of the card and why they feel it's worth what it, or graded the way it was. Then you take it to the real world, and a card with a PSA 10 score, 10 is the best across the board, right? A PSA 10 card is gonna sell for something like 3 or 4 times that of a PSA 9, which is gonna sell for 2 or 3 times more than a PSA 8 and 7 and 6 and so on down the road. So a PSA 1 just means you have a piece of paper, right? You just have a part of that card, you have might be in terrible condition, might be folded in half and torn and bent and ripped, whatever. But you have the card, it has been authenticated, and they are giving it a grade. So that is something to consider for all of your old valuable cards. Get them graded. It basically gives your potential buyer some peace of mind and satisfaction to know that that card is real, that card has been graded, and is free of potentially being damaged in the future. Those clamshell protectors are tamper-proof, so you can't just rip it open, take the card out, and put a new one in. If I'm selling my Mickey Mantle rookie card, which I had, by the way, we'll talk about that in a moment. If I'm selling that card, I need to be able to show front and back of that clamshell to show my potential buyers that that card is in there. It is authentic, it is real, and it is worth money. So I'm going to tell you a quick story about 2 baseball cards that I bought with the intentions of allowing to appreciate and then flip. So the first one was a 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle rookie card. It was graded a PSA 1. Now a PSA 10 Mickey Mantle rookie card is worth something like $3 to $5 million. That is the new holy grail of baseball cards. For whatever reason, a more widely distributed, maybe more famous player is more valuable than one of 15 Honus Wagner cards that's 50 years older than that Mickey Mantle. I bought a PSA 1 because that was what I could afford. I'll tell you, I paid $10,000 for that baseball card. Within 1 month, I sold that baseball card for $14,000. So, why doesn't everybody do that? Well, not everybody can. Timing is everything. I found that card on eBay. The buy it now was $12,000, which was still a steal. I was watching the auction. I believe the guy ended up having a reserve on the card. The reserve must have been $8,500, $9,000, something like that. Once it hit the reserve, the buy it now goes away. So now I'm watching this card hoping it doesn't get bid up past $12,000. There's maybe 20 minutes left and it's at, I wanna say $8,900, something like that, right around $9,000. And I start watching very, very closely. We get down to the final minute, I put in my bid, I hit refresh, and it jumps from $8,500 to I think my $10,000 bid. Bought the card, got FedEx overnighted it, great. Had it the next day, beautiful looking card, PSA 1, everything he said it was. Just a beautiful deal. And it was a dream card. I'd always wanted to have one, and did now, right? So I'm holding it in my hand, I'm super jacked. I just think it's the beautiful thing, I love it. And I continue to watch the market, because while I'm watching this one particular auction, I'm watching all these other ones. Now with that said, generally speaking at this time, PSA 1 cards were selling average 15 grand. So I paid 10. I felt like, you know what, that's a pretty great deal. If I can get 15 for it, I've just made 50% on my money. When I went to list it, I bought it with the intentions of flipping it. I didn't plan to keep it for very long. I put it on eBay, took way better pictures, way better, made a way better description, right? Nothing else changed. It was the exact same card, in the exact same clamshell, with the exact same PSA serial number. None of that changed. I took better pictures, wrote a better description, put a buy it now of $14,000 on that card. Thinking, here's my mindset, there were other cards on there with no bids between 12 and 15,000. The cheapest buy it now was 15 or 15.5 or 15.9 or something like that. So I thought, well, I want to attract a buyer. I want to be priced appropriately. I also don't want to have to relist and deal with that garbage. So I put a buy now 14,000 bucks, and it's sold in hours. It was perfect, absolutely perfect. So after eBay fees, after PayPal fees, after postage, both getting the thing and sending it out, you know, I cleared something like 3,750 bucks or something like that. I made between 35 and 40% on that card with minimal effort in just a few days. The other Mickey Mantle example I've got for you guys is a 1956 card, 56 tops, and another very highly sought after card. Now this one was graded a PSA 8. Now, again, on a scale of 1 to 10, 8's pretty high. There's not a ton of PSA 10s of either of those cards, but of the 56, there's not a ton of PSA 10s out there, maybe a dozen, something like that have been officially graded and in the registry. PSA 9s, there's a couple dozen. PSA 8s, there's a few dozen, but nonetheless, still a pretty rare, valuable card. Well, the problem with mine is the reason it was valued or graded a PSA 8 was because it was miscut. So if you looked at the card, now the card was a sideways, you know, your traditional baseball card is kind of taller than it is wide, right? This particular card is wider than it is tall. Well, the whole image had shifted one direction, and you could see a very wide section of white trim on one side of the card and a very narrow section of white trim on the other side. So the card was just shifted. It was off when the press came to cut those cards. That whole sheet was just off-centered enough that card was miscut. So I was graded a PSA 8 MC, I guess, miscut, whatever. And otherwise, all four corners were near razor sharp. Everything on the card, the coloring was beautiful. No fades, no stains, no rips, tears, bends, creases of any kind. If that thing weren't miscut, I really feel it would have been a PSA 9, 9.5, maybe a 10. I don't know how crisp those corners were. They get them under a microscope and really look. But this PSA 8, same thing. I found it on eBay. And this one, I think what happened was the guy didn't really know what he had. He knew what he had, but he didn't realize the value. He priced it just like every other PSA 8. Now, when you have a miscut or when you have an off-centered card of whatever sort, it's kind of up to the buyer's discretion how much they want to buy it for, because this card was in far more superior condition than your average PSA 8 card, but it was miscut. That didn't bother me. I actually thought that was a very cool way to have a very nice card. So that card was substantially less money. I think I paid 1,500 bucks for that card. So what ended up happening was same thing. I get the card, I'm fiddling around with it, I love it. I kept this card about a month as well. In fact, there was some overlap. I started looking at Mickey Mantle cards and found them both in a very short window. And I think I had bought the 56 before selling the 52, and I had them both for a short while, but they both ultimately went away. Well, anyway, that 56 card, because I had made so much money on the 52, I decided that the 56 was free. Okay, so I like I said, I cleared we'll call it 3,500 bucks on the 52 Mantle rookie. Bought the 56 Mantle card for 1,500 bucks out of the 3,500 profit once everything is negated and worked out. So not only did I get paid 2,000 bucks to buy these two baseball cards, I have one that's now free, more or less. So what I did was I joined a couple of baseball card forums on Facebook and started poking around and seeing that card was selling for 5 to 6, 7, 8,000 bucks for a PSA 8 or PSA 9. And I decided, you know, like the 52, I could probably lowball or undercut some of those other sellers and see what I could get. So what I ended up doing was putting that card up for, man, I think I put it on there for $5,000, thinking it maybe is a long shot, but I'd more than triple my money, so great. And I think what ended up happening, and I'd have to find my spreadsheet because I don't remember which car it was. I was offered a trade. And so what I ended up doing was taking, I want to say, about $1,500 in cash and a car. in trade for this baseball card. Now, the beautiful thing is I got some cash that recouped the cost of the card. So again, now I've got a free vehicle. The vehicle that the guy kicked in with the cash was enough to give me a project moving forward. I still had the proceeds from the first baseball card. Life was good. I made, $3,500 on the first card. I made a free car on the second card, and all in a matter of a couple of months. So I want to keep you guys to have an open mind. My goal with this whole channel page, whatever you want to call it, is not just to BS about cars, not just to talk about money. I want to give you guys ideas and concepts. And you're going to hear on the news, you hear on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all these things about what people are calling a side hustle, okay? A side hustle is important. Your 9 to 5 might pay your bills, it might pay your mortgage, put food on the table, put clothes on your back. But for hobbies and other fun things you want to do in your life, you might need some discretionary money on the side. Maybe your side hustle is building and flipping cars. Maybe you're retailing or reselling or drop shipping something through Amazon. There's a number of things you can do, right? I mean, think about all of the peer-to-peer type of energy drinks and workout programs and beverage companies and all these different things that I can join, and then I can sell their product to my peers, and then I can get peers to work below me to sell the same product. And it works great. People make money at that all the time. That can be your side hustle. But the point is, anytime you've got an opportunity to make some money outside your normal 9 to 5, I would jump at it, because your 9 to 5 is never going to give you the disposable income to grow your assets the way you want, right? So for me, back in the day before I was a financial advisor, my wife and I owned a small coffee shop and a cafe and a little convenience store next door. And between those businesses, I earned tips. Just like any waitress or waiter, any place, I earned tips. And those tips were, I'm not gonna call it my side hustle, but that was my play money. I would accumulate my tips and I would store them in a money bag. And that's actually how I bought my 68 Mustang 10 years ago, was with tip money that I had just earned and saved and earned and saved. And I had a stack of $100 bills that I'd saved for years to buy that car. I had enough money to buy nearly, I shouldn't say everything, but a lot of the parts to get that car going. I had saved enough money to take that car to the body shop and have the body work and the paint done. Rebuilt the engine, all the interior, all the everythings, and all because of tip money on the side. So maybe waitering or waitressing is your gig, or maybe you want to work at a coffee shop and earn those tips, but I think having a side hustle one way or another is just kind of the way people have to do it these days. Unless you're a salaried employee that makes a bunch, right? Unless your hourly wage is pretty high. Now, I don't have a side hustle because I need the side hustle. I have it because I like having the capabilities of buying and trading and selling and flipping cars and doing all those things without jeopardizing my household funds, okay? So for me, it's more of a separation of funds or assets. I want to keep, the car stuff completely separate, or the baseball card stuff completely separate. That's all money that I save and I earn and I do those things with. And then, I use the proceeds from one car into the next. And, so I don't have a second job. I fiddle around in my garage and figure out ways to make money doing that. Circling back to those baseball cards, both of those cards have shot up in value. When I did the 52 Mantle, I think the record price for one was somewhere north of $1 million, but not by much. Since then, I think there's been 2 or 3 or 4 maybe documented sales of those cards in the multi-million-dollar range. And I think a PSA 10 did sell for something like $4.5 or $5 million after buyer fees and commissions and things. So my PSA 1 that I sold for 14 grand, that I bought for 10, I couldn't touch one today under 20 to 25. And if I were to sell it, we're talking 30 grand, maybe more. So timing is everything, right? I might have gotten in at the right time, but sold too soon. If I had kept those cards for a few years and decided to sell it today, my 10 grand could have been worth 30. So pay attention, see what's going on in the world around us. Another, strange but kind of intriguing outside asset that you can invest in is crypto. I'm not an advocate for it. I own a very small amount, discretionary amounts, right? The idea there is if it goes to zero, I haven't hindered my family's health or any of that stuff. No well-being's at risk, right? My idea is use discretionary money and anticipate it going to zero. If it goes the other way, fantastic. Obviously, that's why I bought it. I'm hoping that it goes to the moon and, you know, my $1,000 turns into $1 million. Is that the case? Timing is everything. So you can make money on Bitcoin and Ethereum and Dogecoin and, you know, all of those things. They're all out there. They're all moving around in value. Now's a good time to be buying if you're going to, because the values have come down. Bitcoin was north of 60,000. It's trading in the 30s today. Yeah, I mean, there's opportunities out there in the market, but it's figuring out where to get that disposable or discriminatory income that you can use for those alternatives without jeopardizing your personal health and finances and all those things. You don't want to give yourself a heart attack because you put every dollar into something that fell 80% overnight and now, you know, you've lost it all. So don't do that to yourself. Do not take anything in these videos as financial advice. They're all just concepts and ideas. I just talk out loud, right? These are things that run through my mind. I have been successful doing several of these exact things. I mean, I try to use real world examples myself all the time. But realize that in any of these things, there is a risk. I could have bought a $10,000 baseball card and my dog could have chewed it up. It would become worth nothing, right? Think about that before you dive in and do something different, because most people are comfortable with something tangible, gold, silver, cars, whatever. But the moment you start dabbling in some of these alternatives, realize there is some weird outside world types of risk that you may not consider, right? Until I just said my dog could have chewed on that card, I bet you didn't even think about that. So anyway, as always, I hope everybody is doing well. Please like and subscribe. Comment down below. I'd love to know what your alternative investable vehicles are. Maybe it's real estate. Maybe you're smarter than me and bought baseball cards in the 50s and you're still sitting on them. I wasn't alive in the 50s, so there's that. But let me know what you're buying. Let me know what you're saving, what you're watching, what you're hoping to get into, and what your projects are. But again, like, subscribe, share, post, notifications on, all that stuff. And as always, may every investment you make be a good one. Till next time.